the guy who signed on, Gary, to this theme song every morning and was heard all over the state and in parts of the country, too. It was the Hall of Fame where J.P. McCarthy ended up and winning the Marconi Award as well, and really being part of the lifeblood of Michigan for many, many years. And so we'll play some highlights this morning for you. And he would insist, of course, Gary, that you bring us up to date on the news. So why don't you do that this morning? Good morning.
Yeah, I will. MPS will do. And JP's wonderful voice on WJR was heard every morning. My mom's and dad's kitchen without fail. And boy, certainly terrific hearing JP's voice.
Did you learn anything? Because you were, how old were you then?
Well, actually, see, they started listening. Okay, we moved to Detroit in 1964.
Yeah.
So they started listening. It was the mid. As soon as they got from Ohio to Detroit, they started listening, became regulars right up until they left for Arizona. And that was in the early 1980s.
One of the things that surprises people is the generations. When he was on the air for 35 years, and you have people now who are young professionals who remember hearing it when their fathers would take them to school.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a good point, MPS, a good point, because his work literally overlapped generations from one to the other, sort of being passed down from one generation to another. Families and parents would say, this is what I listen to and why, and you just get so used to hearing it.
I'm 43 years old, and so when I was fully aware of the program when I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
Obviously, I was the producer in my 20s, but because it's had such a broad reach when you include the sports and the news and everything else, and you had young professionals who wouldn't dare miss the program because they knew when they got to the office they would be briefed on what's going on in the world. And they would hear maybe their competitors, or they would hear their boss on the air, or something that they could take and have that would be useful during the day.
True, and it's neat from your perspective, MPS. I mean, you're so close to it for so many years, and you had the foresight to save and catalog all of this terrific audio. Yeah. And because of that, because of your ability and your smarts and your sense to be able to do that years ago, no, really, I mean, without you compiling all this stuff way back when, we would not be able to enjoy it right now.
Well,
so we owe that to you.
Thank you very much. He used to say, I have socks older than you. and I ended up writing a book, the J.P. McCarthy, Just Don't Tell Him Where I Am. It was my first book that I'd ever written, and I wrote it after he passed away by interviewing 50 or more of his friends. And some very famous people did endorsements for that book. Frank Sinatra Jr., Dan Burke, who was the head of ABC at the time, and lots of others there, too. Dennis Conner, the great America's Cup captain, and all of those national stars that he ran around with were very, very supportive. And so that launched me into an entire new career. And it's not about me this morning, though. I want to hear his voice. So give us some news, and we'll get back to some of the tapes. It is funny how when we talk business, we're talking about the auto industry these days and the fact that the auto industry had a bailout. Chrysler had a bailout. Well, it's not the first time. It happened before when Governor Blanchard was a congressman and Chrysler was going under, and Lee Iacocca came in to save the company. They got $800 million from the government. It was sort of an unprecedented thing at the time, and Chrysler came back and paid off the loan early. And the first person that Lee Iacocca called the next morning, Lee Iacocca, of course, the chairman of the Chrysler Corporation, was J.P. McCarthy. And here's what that business interview sounded like.
Hi, J.P. McCarthy. Just calling very early this morning. He's on his way to the office, the chairman of the Chrysler Corporation, day after his proudest moment, Lee Iacocca. Good morning.
Good morning, JP. How are you?
I'm terrific, and I want you to know how good you looked on everybody's television sets 2 days ago when you went down and surprised a lot of people and wrote them a check for $800 million.
It's the first fun day I've had in Washington in 4 years. I appreciate your calling me, JP, and it's a nice feeling.
Congratulations again.
Yeah, thank you.
Always a pleasure to talk to one of our winners of the day in person. That was great fun.
Right, thank you, JP.
Lee Iacocca, the still smiling chairman of Chrysler Corporation, and one of the most amazing American business stories of our history.
Interesting, Gary, isn't it? How everything old is new again. And
yeah, it really is.
Here we go again. And the fact, too, that when we heard the president speak earlier this morning with J.P., Jimmy Carter, and George Herbert Walker Bush, and Bill Clinton, they were talking about jobs, they were talking about health care, they were talking about some of the same issues that are still unresolved as of this day.
Yeah, it really is true, MPS. The years change, the names change, of course, and the details change, but the essence of what they're trying to accomplish, get people back to work, get the economy back on track, it really does repeat itself, doesn't it?
Here's a bit of a medley of what JP was all about. This was played when he went into the Hall of Fame in Chicago.
The legendary great voice of the Great Lakes. And for over 3 decades, the most familiar voice has been this.
Well, good morning, world, and a very pleasant Wednesday to you. Here at 19 minutes after 6, it's raining like the old proverbial cats and dogs.
When it comes to morning radio in Michigan, the word tradition is spelled with 6 letters. JP on JR in the AM.
WJR is a Detroit tradition, and J.P. McCarthy is the voice of Detroit.
We can talk to very important or controversial people and ask them very direct and pointed questions without being rude about it.
I can't tell you how many mornings I've had breakfast with J.P. McCarthy.
What's the problem with Barry Sanders? It doesn't add up to 150 million, Governor, so where's the rest of the money coming from? Your man has got to get tougher if he's going to close the gap, doesn't he? It would be nice to see the gloves off, though, one more time. Don't you think?
From presidents,
JP, imagine talking to you again. I'm glad to hear your voice.
Well, it's nice to hear you.
Performers,
sir. Charlton Heston. Nice
Lovely to be borrowing your audience again.
to people all over
See
Michigan.
you. Yes, what do you think?
Yes, good morning.
Hi.
Calling in from Lansing.
Everyone talks to
The
JP.
other end of my line this morning, maybe the greatest golfer who's ever lived. Name is Jack Nicklaus.
JP, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. Day after his proudest moment, Lee Iacocca. Good morning.
Good morning, JP. How are
And the
you?
right stuff is all about. Good morning, General Yeager.
Morning, JP.
John DeLorean, welcome back.
JP, it's a pleasure to see you again.
Yeah, but it's Raquel Welch doing it, so that counts.
You better believe it. It's my...
President Carter. Have you ever buried the hatchet with the senator?
We've never had any personal animosity.
No one understands Detroit better. Nowhere else will you find a closer relationship between a city and its favorite radio personality.
J.P. knows everybody who's anybody in Detroit.
He's comfortable to get up with.
I like the way JP does it.
While his legions of loyal listeners are justifiably proud, to them and to everyone in Michigan, J.P. McCarthy has been a Hall of Famer for a long, long time.
I'm J.P. McCarthy. We'll get this turkey on the road in a minute.
And it's 18 minutes after the hour on your Monday morning across the state of Michigan. Michael Patrick Shields, we're getting emails and texts and all sorts of things. Your calls are welcome to it.